Good afternoon, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and I want to talk about true crime. If you're familiar with the genre of literature based on true stories, whodunit, courtroom drama, apprehension and suspense, and finding the villains, bringing them to justice. And I want to tell a true story in a short video about an experience that I personally had across the country. I'm currently on the West Coast. I'm in Northern California, but I haven't always lived here. I've lived in many places. I don't need to itemize them, but at one point I was in New York City, and boy, was that an experience. I tell you what, for context, was trying to find work and drove across the country looking for work. I was otherwise unspoken for. I did not have prior commitments, and I thought, what better time to explore and venture out than now in my early 20s. So I did. I took off and, my late 20s, and I drove to New York City from California. And judge me if you will, I ended up there and did my best to establish myself. And I want to just mention a few things that happened while I was there. Failing to find quick employment, I ended up living in my car that I drove there with. And when my car was taken, which happens eventually, be warned, if you plan on living in your car, especially in an urban area, you can expect to lose your car pretty quickly. It doesn't take much. They'll just swoop it out from under you. They have 1,000 ways to do it. But they did this, took my car at one point, and I was out of my car, still looking for work, trying to be enterprising and filling out applications and giving people my resume, applying online and what have you. Not getting any traction, unfortunately, but living outdoors makes it very hard. Right off the bat, 9 out of 10 employers aren't even going to look at your application unless you have an actual mailable local address. You can't just write down that you're a transient. They don't think that's funny or interesting, most of them. And you can sort of understand that. I mean, it makes sense. But unfortunately, being on the streets makes it very difficult, especially if you're in a city where you don't know a lot of people. It can be almost impossible, if not actually impossible, to get work, which was, unfortunately, my situation at the time. So, long story short, I was sitting on a piece of cardboard one night, not being intoxicated, not causing a ruckus, not disturbing anybody. I was getting ready to go to sleep, and the police showed up. They said that I had erected a structure illegally. I said, "What do you mean?" "What do you mean I erected a structure illegally?" They said, "Well, you're building out here, aren't you?" "No, sir." "Well, that cardboard is a type of house. It's a ramshackle house. We're going to have to take you in for this." So they did. They took me in, like they did actually no less than 10 or 20 times while I was there. But point is, when I got to court, I noticed something very interesting that I have not forgotten. I noticed that there was a tight connection between the court schedule, that is when people show up to be seen by the judge or whoever, and the rotation in the jails. Unfortunately, I was in there enough to pick up on this, and they are in lockstep synchrony. I kid you not. And it turns out, also, while I was in there, I had a chance to think a lot about it. The people get moved around and through the jail at the exact same pace as people are seen on the court schedule, which is highly peculiar. You would think that they wouldn't be that synchronized, but they are. And that tells me one thing. It tells me that it's an economic system. They are joined together in business, if you will, passing their time as employees of the court and or the police department in New York City. Or, it turns out, in this part of the world, all the way across the country, the exact same thing goes on between the sheriff's departments. The county sheriffs and the courts do the exact same thing. They've got this lockstep schedule that is in absolute perfect synchrony. People are brought in and ejected from the court like clockwork, as fast as they can be seen in court. And there's never any underpopulation or overpopulation of the jail because people get picked up as needed. That's also what it tells me. So this is all an aside to a bigger subject. My observation in this video doesn't so much have to do with the courts or the sheriff's department or the New York Police Department. It has to do with how things become integrated over time. And people don't realize that when courts and sheriffs, for example, become integrated together, and they have here in a very, very seamless way, in a flawless business type way, you end up with a conflict of interest. Understand something, that traditionally and ideologically, the sheriffs aren't supposed to be passing judgment on you. They're supposed to be bringing you to trial. This is a fact. You are supposed to have actual legal protection from the sheriff or any law enforcement by your constitutional rights, among other rights, in a very specific and legal way for this reason. They need a warrant. They need probable cause. They need, actual reasons to show up and search your stuff. It's illegal. There's such a thing as illegal search and seizure. There's such a thing as breaking and entering. If they don't have a warrant, it becomes a crime on their part, right? So this is all obvious. But here's the problem: when the courts and the sheriff's department operate as a single unit, which they are, it has the effect that the sheriffs write their own warrants at this point. I'm not exaggerating. Sheriffs don't believe they need a warrant. They don't believe they need to read you your rights anymore. They don't believe that they are bound by any obligation to probable cause. You will do what they say because they are the court now. By the time you're in jail, you have already been judged, and I'm not exaggerating. So this is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. So this is almost like a whole book by itself, and I'm not trying to dive too deep into this, but there's a third component, and this is the scariest one of all. I have not mentioned this yet in this video or any other video. There's another party, another department, if you will, an agency, an industrial complex, if you will, which has also, as a third player, become integrated into this union. Can you guess what it is? I'll give you 1 second to think about it. That's right, it's the medical industrial complex. It is the branch of the hospitals and medical industrial complex that deals with psychology, forensic psychiatry, where they involve themselves in this proceeding, the court and the arrest procedure, for the purpose of determining fitness to stand trial, supposedly, but also to prescribe medication, to create diagnoses, and there is a legitimate call for this stuff, and it is hailed as less barbaric and more human than just leaning on deterrence and imprisonment and jail time per se. But it turns out that, again, there's a trade-off. When you integrate the medical industrial complex with the court systems, with the sheriff's department, you end up with this three-headed monster that not only writes its own warrants, but writes its own prescriptions as well. And it has the exact same conflict of interest. There is a gigantic, disgusting, messy travesty of civil rights going on in every single county in the country right now. And God bless you if you haven't experienced this. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you are chosen. You are blessed. Unfortunately, for thousands, if not millions of people, they have experienced, being diagnosed wrongly, quickly, summarily, being arrested and charged and falsely imprisoned, falsely prosecuted, for no other reason than the sheriff just doesn't like them. Okay, this is why we have these protections. This is why we have historically had the Second Amendment right to bear arms, because the founding fathers of the United States of America thought so strongly that the authority was a threat to the people that they actually wrote it into the Constitution. Now, whether it was practical or effective is a separate conversation. They aimed at protecting the people's power from the authority itself. That was the entire aim and purpose of the Second Amendment. Now, I'm not suggesting that y'all run out and buy guns necessarily, and there might be a reason, I don't know, but I'm saying that it's a real threat that is a recurring pattern. It's a recurring pattern, not just in America, not just in Europe, but all throughout human history, where a ruling class, some kind of government or administration, gets a little too big for their britches. They get slap happy, they walk up in your house without any kind of reason, they take your stuff, They steal whatever they can, and they leave. And we are right back at it. Friends and family, we are back at it in earnest. Okay? If you think you have rights, if you think the court is going to defend you, if you think that you have access to a lawyer or bail, if you think that you can resist any authority right now, you need to wake up. That system, it never worked to begin with, but it is especially offline right now. You just got to believe that before you see it. Please reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.